Imagine running full speed on a treadmill, exhausted, sweating, heart pounding, only to realize you're not moving forward. That's what chasing what doesn't serve your soul feels like. You're busy, but not becoming. The Stoics warned us of this trap centuries ago. They taught that peace isn't found in possession, but in purpose. That freedom isn't found in desire, but in discipline. Chase what's hollow, and you'll feel sorrow. Follow the noise, lose your voice. Ignore your role, and forfeit your soul. In this video, we'll explore 7 powerful reasons why letting go of what drains you, whether it's toxic relationships, empty ambitions, or superficial goals, is not just a spiritual choice, but a Stoic necessity. Because when you don't, here's what's at risk. You become a slave to your desires. You waste time chasing illusions. You lose touch with your inner compass. So if you're tired of feeling scattered, misaligned, and unfulfilled, this message is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe for more soul-centered Stoic wisdom, and stay to the end where we'll help you ask the one question that might just change your life. Number 1, it distances you from the only true good, virtue. The Stoics were clear on one thing. Virtue is the only true good. Virtue to them meant living with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Qualities that are entirely within your control and define your character. Everything else, wealth, reputation, appearance, success, is what they called indifference. These aren't inherently good or bad. They might be preferred if they come along, but they are never the measure of your worth. When you start chasing things that don't serve your soul, things that pull you away from your principles, you begin to trade the one stable source of fulfillment for things that are fragile, fleeting, and often out of your hands. It's like a tortoise abandoning its shell because it envies the speed of the hare. In chasing something that isn't natural to its nature, it leaves behind its one true form of strength, its protection. Likewise, when you chase money at the expense of justice, or cling to relationships that rob you of self-respect, you abandon the solid ground of virtue. You become exposed, vulnerable, led by impulse rather than principle. Marcus Aurelius said it best, just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. When you lose sight of that, your life becomes reactive rather than intentional. You become guided not by wisdom or courage, but by fear, pride, and the insatiable hunger for approval. The danger in this path is not always immediate, but it's deeply corrosive over time. You may gain the world and still feel empty. You may be praised outwardly and yet lose all sense of inner peace. When you neglect virtue, you drift away from your soul, and the further you drift, the harder it is to return. You become someone you don't fully recognize, compromised, anxious, reactive. The consequence is not just emotional fatigue, but moral erosion. And when storms come, as they always do, you'll realize that the things you chase can't hold you together. Only virtue can. And if you've neglected it for too long, the foundation may no longer be there when you need it most. Number 2, you become a slave to what you desire. Epictetus, who knew the literal condition of slavery, offered one of the most liberating truths in Stoic philosophy. True bondage doesn't come from your external circumstances. It comes from your inner attachments. It's not your job, your partner, or your situation that enslaves you. It's your craving for something you believe you can't live without. The moment your happiness becomes dependent on getting a specific outcome, whether it's someone's approval, a certain lifestyle, or recognition, you've handed over your inner peace to forces beyond your control. You no longer act with intention, you react with desperation. What begins as a desire turns into a chain, quietly binding you to anxiety and fear. Imagine a dog chasing a moving car. Every time the car speeds up, the dog runs faster. It doesn't question why it's chasing, only that it must. This is how we behave when we pursue desires that don't serve our soul. We become fixated, unaware that the very thing we're chasing will never stop, never satisfy, and may even harm us. In this endless pursuit, we lose agency. We begin to act out of compulsion rather than clarity. Epictetus put it plainly, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. But the more we cling to outcomes we can't guarantee, the more we entangle ourselves in fear of loss and hope of gain. Two forces that rule the unfree mind. The danger in this is subtle but destructive. You may begin to mistake obsession for purpose, or addiction for ambition. When your desires own you, your sense of peace is no longer your own. It's leased to the world, and the rent is due daily. The soul becomes restless, weighed down by worry, driven by insecurity. And the consequences, you start sacrificing your time, values, and well-being for things that cannot love you back. Over time, your identity becomes distorted. You no longer know if you're living your truth or just chasing shadows. This isn't freedom. It's servitude in disguise. To reclaim your life, you must reclaim your power to choose. Not just what you pursue, but why. Only then can you step out of the cage built by your own unchecked desires. Number 3, peace is found in acceptance, not acquisition. One of the most persistent illusions in modern life is the belief that peace lies just one step ahead, just after we get the promotion, find the right partner, or achieve some long-desired goal. But the Stoics knew that this kind of striving is a trap, not a path to serenity. Real peace isn't found in acquiring more, but in learning to accept what is. Acceptance is not passivity. It's the active decision to live in alignment with reality rather than wrestling it into a shape we think will finally make us happy. When you chase things that don't serve your soul, you postpone peace in the name of progress, always thinking it's one more achievement away. Picture a man in a boat paddling furiously upstream, convinced that the river flows backward toward peace. The harder he rows, the more exhausted he becomes, unaware that if he simply stopped resisting and let go, he'd be carried by the current to where he truly belongs. This is how we live when we equate fulfillment with acquisition. We accumulate things, chase recognition, overextend ourselves, believing this is the price of peace. But it never arrives. Seneca warned us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The endless craving blinds us to the richness of what we already have, creating a poverty of spirit that no amount of success can fill. The danger of this mindset is quiet but corrosive. You may become externally accomplished but inwardly hollow, constantly anxious that you're falling behind or missing out. Life becomes a series of finish lines that only lead to new races. In the process, your soul is neglected, stretched thin by the constant reaching. The consequence is that you never truly rest. You live in a chronic state of almost, haunted by the illusion that contentment is out there somewhere. But when you stop chasing what doesn't nourish you, something shifts. You begin to work with life rather than against it. You see that peace was never something to be earned, but something to be uncovered within. In that acceptance, in that stillness, you touch the tranquility the Stoics called ataraxia, a calm that no external storm can touch. Number 4, you reclaim your time, energy, and life. Time is the one thing we can never get back, yet we spend so much of it chasing things that leave us feeling empty. We convince ourselves that being busy is the same as being purposeful, when in reality, we often run in circles, reacting, striving, reaching, without ever asking if what we're chasing aligns with our soul. The Stoics were deeply aware of this trap. Seneca, in On the Shortness of Life, reminds us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Life isn't short by design. It becomes short when we trade our precious time for meaningless pursuits, empty validation, or shallow ambition. Think of your life like a lantern filled with oil. Each moment you give away to something unworthy drains that oil, dimming the light meant to illuminate what truly matters: your growth, your peace, your relationships, your purpose. But if you focus on what serves your soul, you preserve that light, allowing it to shine brighter and longer. When you stop pouring your energy into things that drain you, you discover how much power you actually have. You're no longer pulled in 100 directions. Instead, you become deliberate, choosing how to spend your days, where to focus your attention, and what kind of life you want to build. The danger of ignoring this is that you wake up one day and realize you've been busy, but not alive. You've filled your calendar but emptied your heart. Time spent chasing the wrong things comes at a cost. Missed moments with loved ones, delayed dreams, neglected inner growth. The consequence is a quiet regret that creeps in slowly, asking uncomfortable questions. What was all of this for? Why does it still feel hollow? But there is a way back. When you stop chasing what doesn't serve your soul, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your life. You begin living on purpose, not by accident. The soul, when no longer distracted by the superficial, begins to flourish in the stillness. You realize you never needed more time. You just needed to stop giving it away to the wrong things. Number 5, you begin to live according to nature. To live according to nature, as the Stoics taught, is not to retreat from the world, but to align yourself with your deepest and most noble instincts: reason, virtue, cooperation, and inner discipline. Human beings are not random creatures of desire. We are wired for purpose, for wisdom, for justice. When we chase things that don't serve the soul, be it shallow pleasures, social approval, or manipulative ambitions, we're living against that nature. We may succeed outwardly, but we fracture inwardly. Marcus Aurelius urged us to remain simple, good, pure, serious, unpretentious, reminding us that our highest calling is not conquest or validation, but inner integrity. Imagine a tree trying to grow sideways, because all the other trees are leaning that way. It stretches unnaturally, away from the sunlight, warping its form in search of belonging. Eventually, it becomes unstable, fragile, unable to weather storms. That's what we do when we live out of sync with our nature. We twist ourselves for likes, recognition, and external gain. But the soul keeps score. It senses when we compromise our principles, and that quiet unease builds over time. We lose the inner ease that comes from knowing we are living rightly. And the more we force a life that isn't true to who we are, the more life itself begins to resist us. The energy drains, the relationships strain, and peace feels increasingly out of reach. The danger in chasing what contradicts your nature is subtle but profound. You may achieve a version of success that society admires, but it comes with a cost: chronic dissatisfaction, self-betrayal, and an erosion of your moral compass. The consequence is a kind of spiritual exhaustion, a heaviness that lingers no matter how good things look on the outside. But when you return to what is natural, acting with reason, speaking with honesty, serving others, honoring your values, something shifts. Life no longer needs to be forced. You begin to move with, not against, the current of your own being. You no longer need to chase because you're no longer lost. You're simply walking the path your soul was always meant to take, steady and grounded. That is where real strength and serenity live. Number 6, suffering arises from misplaced attachments. The Stoics taught that suffering doesn't come from the things that happen to us, but from how we interpret and cling to them. They weren't cold or emotionless, but wise in their understanding of human vulnerability. We suffer most when we place our peace in the hands of things we don't control: other people's opinions, fleeting pleasures, or uncertain outcomes. When you chase what doesn't serve your soul, you begin to attach your worth to external conditions that shift like sand. The soul becomes restless, constantly adjusting itself to meet something outside its grasp, and every shift becomes a potential wound. Consider a person gripping a thorny vine in the hope that it will pull them to safety. The tighter they hold, the more they bleed. Yet they're convinced letting go would mean falling. This is how we cling to our attachments, believing they will save us while they slowly hurt us. For example, someone who builds their self-worth around social media praise will feel high when the likes pour in, but crushed when silence follows. Their emotional state is no longer theirs. It belongs to an algorithm. As Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. The real pain comes not from the world, but from our belief that we need it to go a certain way in order to be okay. The danger of these attachments is that they place you in a constant state of vulnerability. You become emotionally fragile, dependent on circumstances beyond your control to feel whole. The consequence is a life ruled by anxiety, jealousy, and disappointment. A life lived reactively instead of mindfully. But the moment you stop chasing what doesn't serve your soul, you begin to reclaim your inner freedom. You loosen your grip on the thorny vine and realize you never needed to hold it in the first place. This doesn't mean withdrawal from life, but a return to the part of life you do own: your mind, your actions, your perspective. When you detach from illusions and false promises, what remains is something far sturdier, peace rooted in wisdom, not circumstance. And from there, suffering no longer defines you. You begin to live from the inside out. Number 7, you make room for what truly matters. When your life is filled to the brim with pursuits that don't nourish your soul, it's like trying to grow a garden in soil already cluttered with weeds and debris. There's no room for anything meaningful to take root. The Stoics understood this deeply, not as an argument for detachment from life, but as a call to make space for what truly aligns with our higher nature. Letting go of what doesn't serve you is not an act of loss, but an act of courage. It's not a rejection of life, it's a refinement of it. When you release the noise, the clutter, the striving that wears you down, you open yourself to clarity, to presence, to peace. Imagine carrying a backpack overflowing with rocks, each one representing a toxic relationship, a superficial goal, or someone else's expectation. The weight slows you down, distorts your posture, and distracts your mind. But because you're used to it, you forget what it feels like to walk freely. When you finally choose to take those rocks out, your steps become lighter, your direction clearer, and suddenly you're able to notice the path beneath your feet. Life doesn't just change, it reveals itself. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there, but previously buried under your burdens. You rediscover love, stillness, creativity, and purpose, not as things to chase, but as things you now have room to welcome. The danger of not letting go is stagnation. You become trapped in a life that feels busy but barren, surrounded by noise, yet deeply disconnected from what matters. The consequence is not only missed opportunities, but a soul that slowly withers from lack of nourishment. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, suffering from the external is a choice rooted in our judgment, and we have the power to revoke that judgment at any moment. To stop chasing what doesn't serve your soul is to reclaim that power. It's to pull the weeds so the garden can finally grow. In doing so, you don't end up with less. You end up with exactly what your soul was waiting for: space to breathe, to grow, and to finally come alive in alignment with what truly matters. Conclusion: to stop chasing what doesn't serve your soul requires courage. The courage to be misunderstood, to take the quieter path, to live on your own terms. In a world addicted to more, walking away looks like failure, but the Stoics knew better. Real success isn't climbing higher, it's stepping off the wrong ladder altogether. You don't need everyone's approval, you don't need endless applause, you don't need to prove your worth through pain. You need peace, you need integrity, you need alignment. This is the Stoic path. Not a rejection of life, but a return to it. A life lived deliberately, wisely, and soulfully. So ask yourself today, what am I chasing that doesn't serve my soul? And more importantly, am I ready to let it go?